in L.A., I am so intrigued with these people that are being interviewed that say they've been abducted. Tell me about this doctor you spoke to, Dr. Lear, who started out as a skeptic of this whole phenomena. He's a surgeon.
Yes.
Tell me about him.
Well, Lear was asked by a friend to go in and look at this patient who claimed to have some sort of a implant or whatever, something under his skin. And, you know, first Lear just figured it was probably a wire or maybe a BB from childhood accident or something. But when he found out that the person was claiming to have been abducted by so-called aliens, he did an about-face and walked out of the room. Didn't want anything to do with this stuff. And in some ways, who could blame him? So he goes in reluctantly. He's sort of persuaded to come back and at least just look at the thing. Looks at the x-rays. Yes, there seems to be something there. So he decides to operate. He goes in. And to his absolute astonishment, what he discovers is a very small metallic implant. But over this implant, and this is obviously a magnification, I'll use my fist, is a secretion, a membrane of some sort. And he takes his scalpel and he tries to cut this membrane and he can't cut it. He then takes a forceps and goes in and yanks this thing out. And it comes out sometimes, he's done 16 of these things since, but it comes out sometimes in 2 or 3 pieces. What he's discovered is when you take these things out and you put them in a petri dish of the patient's blood, and you just let them, and the pieces are, let's say, separated by a half an inch or an inch. Come back 24, 48 hours later, the pieces have tried to assemble themselves. How is that possible? These implants are giving out a clock speed of a frequency, which we believe is a sawtooth, which means it's a computer wave. It's a clock speed at 300 gigahertz, which is 100 times faster than the fastest computer we have on the planet. Inside these things are carbon nanotubes not found in nature. And other compartments, we have no idea what they're doing. But I asked Lear, I said, in your professional opinion, what do you think this implant is? And in sort of a gruff, and I'll do my best imitation, he goes, well, it's changing the person's DNA. But that's what he believes. And that
Did you hear that? It's literally going to change a person's DNA.
Some sort of genetic reconfiguration matrix.
You show impressive intellect for a Homo sapien. Using the massive carrier wave that, thanks to you, Gorilla City's shield generator can now produce, I'm about to send a signal that will rewrite human DNA. A devolution ray that will turn every man, woman, and child on Earth into an ape.
Oh, come on!
Why am I not surprised?
What does that mean?
In the Hebrew, it comes from the verb nephal. It means the fallen ones. And that's the term used. Don't confuse that with the fallen angels. The fallen angels, according to Genesis 6, cohabited with human women to produce a hybrid offspring that are called in the Hebrew the Nephilim. In the Septuagint version of the Old Testament, the translation of the Old Testament into Greek, they use the word gigantes, which is transliterated giants, right. And they did happen to be giants, but that's not what the word means. The word actually means, in the Greek, the earthborn. And so, from the Greek point of view, they're earthborn. From the Hebrew point of view, they're the fallen ones. But either way, they're pointing to a hybrid, and it apparently was part of Satan's plan to contaminate the Messianic line.
But so the purpose of the flood was to get rid of these.
Exactly.
People.
That's that's exactly the point. When you study verse 9 of Genesis 6, it speaks of Noah that his genealogy was untainted, unblemished. And apparently it was a distinctive in that sense. He may not have been the only one unblemished, but the fact that he was unblemished qualified him for what God was going to do. Noah were, that he's implying a parallelism. And so that's why we got interested in this in the first place. And if that's true, we can test it very simply, because if we're correct, these events are going to increase as we get increasingly closer to what we call the end times.
Okay, there's an allusion to this that's, I mean, it really grabbed me when you explained it on my radio show from Daniel.
Yes, oh, exactly. In Daniel chapter 2, we have the famous image of Nebuchadnezzar, and as he goes through it, the mystery is the iron mixed with clay. And when Daniel goes to explain what the miry clay is, he says, as for the miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men. Now, I've had the exegetical experts confirm this, the they, he shifts to a personal pronoun, but the they has to be something other than the seed of men in order for them to mingle with us. Just grammatically, it requires that. So that leads to a speculation. What are we talking about here? One of the possibilities is that we're dealing here with something that's not the seed of men, namely Nephilim, hybrids.